Why California drivers are panicking over commute costs in 2026. What if your normal drive to work suddenly costs you more than a family vacation? In 2026, many drivers in California are waking up to a terrifying reality. The average daily commute is quietly draining thousands of dollars every year. Fuel prices, tolls, insurance, parking, and surprise fines are stacking up so fast that experts warn commuting is becoming a second hidden tax. Most drivers do not even notice it until their bank balance starts screaming. Here is the shocking part. This is not an accident. New policies, smart traffic systems, congestion pricing, and climate-driven regulations are all hitting at the same time. Studies show commute costs are rising faster than wages, meaning you are working just as hard but keeping less. Even careful drivers are paying more simply for showing up to work on time. And in 2026, these costs are accelerating. So the real question is this. How much is your morning commute actually costing you? And how bad will it get next? Stay with us because the next 10 reasons explain why drivers are in full panic mode and what this could mean for your wallet if nothing changes. Reason 1. Fuel prices have become a silent daily tax. For most drivers in California, fuel prices no longer rise with loud warnings or sudden shocks. Instead, they creep up slowly and silently, draining money from your wallet every single morning. A few extra cents per gallon may not sound scary, but over weeks and months, it turns into hundreds, even thousands of dollars a year for regular commuters. That is why experts now call fuel costs a silent commute tax. What is driving this surge? Research points to a perfect storm. Stricter fuel standards, refinery shutdowns, climate-related regulations, and supply chain pressures are all tightening fuel availability. At the same time, demand has not dropped because people still need to get to work. Studies in transportation economics show that when supply tightens but demand stays strong, prices climb steadily and stay high. The result is that drivers pay more without any clear moment to push back. Now picture your own commute. 10 miles becomes 20. 20 becomes 40. Each stop at the pump feels routine. But over a year, those routine fill-ups quietly erase savings, delay plans, and increase stress. Many commuters report cutting back on groceries, skipping vehicle maintenance, or using credit cards just to keep driving. That is not poor budgeting. It is commute inflation. So what can drivers do right now? Experts recommend tracking monthly fuel spending, combining trips whenever possible, and avoiding peak congestion hours that burn more fuel. Even small changes like smoother driving or one less weekly trip can slow the damage. Because if fuel keeps rising the way studies predict, your commute will not just cost time in 2026, it will cost freedom. Reason 2. Congestion pricing turns roads into pay-to-work zones. In California, a growing number of drivers are discovering something shocking. You now have to pay just to sit in traffic. Congestion pricing, charging drivers extra fees to use busy roads during peak hours, is expanding quietly but aggressively. What was once a pilot program is becoming a permanent commute cost, especially for people who drive to work early in the morning. Transportation studies show that congestion pricing does not reduce traffic overnight. It rearranges who can afford to drive. High-income drivers barely notice the fee. But middle-class workers, delivery drivers, nurses, teachers, and gig workers feel it immediately. A few dollars each morning does not sound dramatic until it happens 5 days a week, 50 weeks a year. Suddenly, your commute costs hundreds or thousands more just for using the same roads you have always used. Here is what makes drivers angry. There are often no real alternatives. Public transport may be overcrowded, unreliable, or unavailable for early shifts. Remote work is not an option for many jobs. So drivers are forced to choose between paying the fee or risking longer routes that burn more fuel and time. Research shows this creates a double penalty. Either pay congestion charges or pay more in fuel and lost hours. Picture this. You are already stuck in traffic, watching the clock, stressing about being late, and now you are also being billed for it. That stress is not accidental. Experts say congestion pricing is designed to change behavior, but when people have no flexibility, it simply drains income. What can you do? Some drivers adjust schedules, carpool, or track zones carefully to avoid peak pricing windows. But as congestion pricing expands, one thing is clear. Your commute is no longer just a drive, it is a transaction, and the meter is always running. Reason 3. Car insurance costs are exploding. One of the most frustrating shocks for drivers in California is this. Even if you have never had an accident, your car insurance is still getting more expensive. In 2026, insurance premiums are rising so fast that many commuters feel blindsided. Research and risk modeling shows insurers are no longer pricing policies based only on your driving record. They are pricing where you drive, when you drive, and how often you commute. Why does this matter? Because dense traffic, longer commutes, and urban congestion dramatically increase risk exposure. Studies show that the more time your car spends on the road, especially during peak hours, the higher the chance of a claim, even if you are a cautious driver. Add climate-related risks like flooding, wildfires, and heat damage, and insurers respond the same way every time. They raise premiums across the board. Now think about the psychological impact. Insurance used to be a fixed, predictable cost. Today, drivers are opening renewal notices and seeing double-digit increases without any explanation they can control. Many commuters are forced to downgrade coverage, raise deductibles, or pay monthly, quietly increasing total costs even more. This is not reckless driving. It is systemic price pressure. Picture paying more every month just to be allowed to commute. That money does not improve your drive, reduce traffic, or make you safer. It simply protects the system from risk. According to economic studies, when insurance becomes unaffordable, drivers delay maintenance or take financial shortcuts, which ironically increases overall road risk. What can you do right now? Experts recommend shopping policies annually, tracking mileage-based insurance options, and reassessing coverage tied to commute distance. Small adjustments can help, but the bigger reality remains. In 2026, your commute is being priced as a liability, and safe driving alone is no longer enough to keep costs down. Reason 4. Electric vehicle mandates add hidden commute costs. Many drivers in California were told that electric vehicles would save money and simplify commuting. But in 2026, research shows a more complicated reality. New vehicle mandates and aggressive transition policies are creating hidden costs that hit commuters long before any long-term savings appear. For thousands of drivers, switching is not just a lifestyle choice, it is a financial pressure. Studies on vehicle transition costs reveal that while EVs reduce fuel spending, they introduce new expenses drivers were not prepared for. Home charging installation can cost thousands. Public chargers are often priced higher during peak hours, exactly when commuters need them most. Add increased electricity rates and limited charging availability, and suddenly the cheaper commute feels far less certain. Now imagine the daily stress. Instead of just watching the fuel gauge, drivers are tracking battery range, charger availability, and time lost waiting. Research in behavioral economics shows that uncertainty itself adds psychological cost, increasing anxiety and commute fatigue. For people in apartments or older homes, charging access becomes another silent barrier, forcing reliance on public networks that are both crowded and expensive. There is also the issue of vehicle pricing. Studies show EV purchase costs remain higher up front, and insurance premiums can rise due to expensive battery repairs. Even minor damage can lead to major bills, pushing insurance rates higher for everyone in the pool. These costs do not show up on the sticker, but they show up in your monthly budget. What can drivers do now? Experts suggest planning charging strategies, comparing total ownership costs, not just fuel savings, and avoiding rush decisions. Because in 2026, the EV shift is not free. For many commuters, it is turning the simple act of getting to work into a complex, costly calculation. Reason 5, parking fees are exploding. For many commuters in California, parking used to be a minor annoyance. In 2026, it has become a major financial trap. Cities and private operators are rapidly replacing flat rate and free parking with dynamic pricing systems that change by location, demand, and even time of day. Research in urban transport planning shows the shift is designed to control traffic, but the real impact is on drivers' wallets. Here is how it works. Morning peak hours cost more. Busy zones cost more. Special events, construction, or reduced parking supply push prices even higher. What used to be a few dollars a day quietly turns into hundreds per month for people who drive to work. Studies show that parking costs now rival fuel costs for some urban commuters. And unlike gas, parking prices are often impossible to avoid. Picture this. You arrive at work already stressed from traffic, only to circle the block while prices climb minute by minute. Digital meters and apps make it easy to charge more instantly, and drivers feel pressured to accept the cost rather than risk being late. Research confirms this creates a psychological squeeze. Drivers pay quickly and complain later after the damage is done. There is also enforcement. Smart sensors and plate scanners mean fewer warnings and more instant fines. One expired session can trigger penalties that cost more than the parking itself. Over time, these small hits quietly drain savings and increase commute anxiety. What can you do? Experts suggest tracking parking spending monthly, sharing rides where possible, and negotiating workplace parking benefits if available. But as parking policy tightens, one truth stands out. In 2026, parking is no longer a convenience. It is a recurring commute expense that never stops climbing. Reason 6. Longer commute times are quietly stealing your money. In California, the real cost of commuting in 2026 is not just what you pay, it is the time you are losing every single day. Road diets, constant construction, lane reductions, and new traffic designs are stretching commute times longer and longer. Transportation studies show that even a 10 to 15-minute increase each way adds up to dozens of lost hours every year, and those hours have a real dollar value. Economists call this the time cost effect. Research proves that longer commutes reduce productivity, increase stress, and limit overtime or side income opportunities. For hourly workers, late arrivals can mean direct pay cuts. For salaried workers, it often means longer unpaid days. Either way, you are giving more time for the same income, and that is a hidden pay cut most people never calculate. Picture sitting in stop-and-go traffic, watching the clock, knowing you will arrive home later, miss family time, or skip rest. Studies in behavioral science show that chronic commute delays increase fatigue and decision errors, leading to higher accident risk and more costly mistakes on the road. That is how time loss quietly turns into financial loss. And here is the frustrating part. Many of these delays are intentional. Urban planning research confirms that slower traffic is often used to discourage driving. But when drivers have no realistic alternatives, they do not drive less. They just spend more time stuck. What can drivers do right now? Experts recommend tracking commute time weekly, adjusting departure times, and using real-time traffic tools to avoid peak congestion. Even small shifts can reclaim hours. Because in 2026, your commute is not just costing fuel and fees, it is stealing time you will never get back. Reason 7, vehicle maintenance costs are rising faster than inflation. For drivers in California, keeping a car on the road in 2026 is no longer just about fuel and insurance. It is about survival-level maintenance costs. Research in the auto industry shows that vehicle repair expenses are rising faster than general inflation, turning routine upkeep into a serious financial burden for daily commuters. Modern cars are packed with sensors, cameras, and software. While these systems improve safety, studies show they also make repairs far more expensive. A small fender bump can require recalibrating cameras and sensors, costing hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Add supply chain delays and labor shortages, and mechanics are charging more simply because parts and skilled technicians are harder to find. Now think about wear and tear. Longer commutes mean more mileage, more brake use, and more stress on engines and batteries. Research confirms that stop-and-go traffic common in urban commuting causes accelerated component failure, especially for brakes, transmissions, and cooling systems. What used to be a once-a-year expense now shows up multiple times. Here is the dangerous cycle. When maintenance gets expensive, drivers delay repairs. Studies show delayed maintenance increases breakdown risk, accident rates, and long-term costs. One ignored warning light can turn into a repair bill that wipes out months of savings. This is how maintenance becomes a financial ambush rather than a planned expense. What can drivers do? Experts suggest preventive maintenance schedules, budgeting monthly repair funds, and addressing small issues early. Tracking mileage and service intervals is critical. Because in 2026, neglect is not cheaper. It is the fastest way your commute turns into a financial disaster. Reason 8, toll roads are no longer optional. In California, toll roads were once a choice. Pay extra to save time or take the free route and wait. In 2026, that choice is disappearing fast. Transportation finance studies show that more highways and express lanes are being converted into managed toll corridors, leaving drivers with fewer realistic free alternatives. For many commuters, tolls are no longer a luxury. They are a daily necessity. Here is the hidden problem. Toll prices are dynamic. That means they rise during peak hours, accidents, bad weather, or heavy demand, exactly when commuters need these roads most. Research shows that dynamic tolling can multiply costs during morning rush hour, turning a short commute into a high-price transaction. Drivers often do not realize how much they have spent until the monthly statement arrives. Now imagine the pressure. You are already late. Traffic is backed up and the free lanes are crawling. The toll lane looks empty, but the price keeps climbing. Studies in behavioral economics show drivers are more likely to accept high tolls under time stress. Even when it hurts financially, over weeks and months, those split-second decisions quietly add up to thousands of dollars. There is also the issue of automation. Many toll systems now use license plate billing. Miss a notice or delay payment, and fees and penalties stack on instantly. Drivers report paying more in late charges than tolls themselves, a system that punishes forgetfulness, not bad driving. What can you do? Experts advise reviewing toll statements monthly, setting usage alerts, and planning routes outside peak pricing windows when possible. But one thing is clear. In 2026, toll roads are not just part of the commute. They are becoming the price of access to work itself. Reason 9, automated tickets and fines catch drivers off guard. In California, getting a traffic ticket in 2026 no longer requires a flashing police light. Instead, cameras, sensors, and automated enforcement systems are watching constantly, and they never give warnings. Research in traffic enforcement shows a sharp rise in citations from red light cameras, speed sensors, and toll enforcement systems, especially during peak commute hours. Here is why this is expensive. Automated systems operate on zero tolerance. A brief speed fluctuation, rolling stop, or lane misuse can trigger an instant fine. Studies show that these systems increase ticket volume without significantly improving safety, meaning more drivers are paying penalties even when accident rates stay the same. For commuters, this turns the daily drive into a financial minefield. Now picture receiving a ticket weeks later, long after the moment passed. No memory, no explanation, just a bill. Behavioral research shows delayed penalties feel more frustrating and stressful, making drivers feel powerless rather than cautious. Add late fees, administrative charges, and mandatory traffic school, and one minor violation can explode into hundreds of dollars. There is also enforcement creep. As systems prove profitable, cities expand them. Cameras appear in places drivers do not expect, near work zones, school areas, and newly redesigned intersections. Even careful drivers can be caught by unclear signage or sudden rule changes, a problem documented in multiple urban transport studies. What can drivers do? Experts recommend reviewing routes for enforcement zones, staying updated on local traffic changes, and promptly checking mail or digital notices. Because in 2026, enforcement is not about being pulled over. It is about being billed. And most drivers do not realize the cost until it is too late. Reason 10, your pay is not rising with commute costs. The final and most dangerous problem for drivers in California is simple and brutal. Your income is not keeping up with your commute. In 2026, economic research shows that while transportation costs continue to rise, wages for many workers remain flat or grow slowly. That gap creates a silent squeeze where every mile to work shrinks your real paycheck. Think about it this way. Fuel, tolls, insurance, parking, maintenance, and fines all increase year after year, but your salary does not adjust for commute inflation. Studies confirm that when job-related expenses rise faster than income, workers experience a decline in real earnings, even if their paycheck number looks the same. You are earning, but you are keeping less. This hits middle-income workers the hardest. High earners can absorb the cost. Low-income workers often qualify for assistance. But everyday commuters in the middle are forced to cut back on savings, healthcare, repairs, or family needs just to keep driving to work. Research shows this financial pressure increases burnout, job dissatisfaction, and even decisions to quit or relocate. Now imagine working harder, staying later, commuting longer, and still falling behind. That frustration is not personal failure. It is a structural problem where getting to work costs more than the system admits. Economists warn that when commute costs outpace wages, mobility declines and opportunity narrows. What can drivers do? Experts suggest calculating total commute cost annually, negotiating flexible schedules, and considering remote or hybrid options if available. Because in 2026, the biggest shock is not traffic. It is realizing your commute is quietly cutting your income every single day. Conclusion: awareness is the first step to control. As we have seen, the morning commute in California is no longer just a routine part of life. It has become a serious financial burden hiding in plain sight. What makes this situation so dangerous is not one single cost, but how all these pressures stack together. Fuel, tolls, insurance, parking, maintenance, fines, lost time, and stagnant wages may seem manageable on their own. Combined, they quietly drain thousands of dollars every year from drivers who are simply trying to get to work. The most alarming part is how invisible these costs feel at first. There is no one bill that screams commute crisis. Instead, the money disappears in small daily amounts, extra minutes here, a few dollars there, until savings vanish and stress becomes normal. Research shows this kind of slow financial pressure is the hardest to fight because people adapt instead of resisting. They cut personal spending, delay repairs, and accept rising costs as unavoidable, even when those costs are reshaping their entire quality of life. This is not just about traffic or inconvenience. Studies link longer, more expensive commutes to higher stress levels, reduced productivity, poorer health, and lower life satisfaction. When getting to work feels like a punishment, motivation drops and burnout rises. Over time, this affects families, communities, and local economies, not just individual drivers. But awareness changes everything. Once you understand where the money is going, you regain control. Tracking commute costs, questioning new charges, adjusting schedules, and demanding smarter policies all start with knowing the truth. The goal of this discussion is not to create fear. It is to create clarity. Because in 2026, the biggest risk for drivers is not traffic itself. It is not realizing how much the commute is truly costing you until it is already too late.